Hey guys, so I have done a rather significant number of videos lately on the concept of the toroid flower and given a number of different examples of applications for this concept. But one thing I haven't talked about a whole lot is how exactly one would flow with it. That is, how one would integrate it with other toroid moves, or how, for instance, one would integrate it back with the two-dimensional tricks that we're so very much used to playing with. I've actually been playing a lot with the concept in the past few days, and I have a couple of concrete examples, and I've narrowed down how they work to such an extent that I think I can talk intelligently about them, or at least give a basic breakdown. To understand how they work, we kind of have to go back to this notion that I introduced back in Tech Blog, I think it was 198, of the idea of a toroid flower being the path that a person would take if they were, say, walking around the moon or another orbiting body as it goes around a planet or the sun, and kind of tracing out the path that they follow through space. Now, as they follow that path through space, there are two possible options as to how they could depart it in a way that would produce some different results. One is if they started walking in a different path around that orbiting body than the one we're used to. So say, what if, as they're walking from the North to the South Pole, like in this example, they come upon the equator and they decide to stop there and just walk around the equator. They can also decide at any point, once they're happy with having walked around the equator, that they're going to go back to walking north and south. You could think of this as if we're always making sure that the plane is facing inside, like a good little isolation or extension, if it were clubs or doubles, that we would instead change that pathway such either that, you know, it would remain pointing the same direction the whole way around, or if it rotated in this kind of fashion, where we're not necessarily keeping the plane orthogonal to the path of the hand, but we are still keeping the pathway inside of that toroid flower, right? And what that would look like if you performed it in a vertical set is if we're taking our toroid flower that we all know and love right here, we can just as easily depart from it in anti-spin and then resume our pathway through it, like so. Easy peasy. Okay, but what about this? What about if there was a second toroid that intersected with that first toroid? So, for example, we could imagine that there is a second orbiting body that is orbiting around this same sun or the moon, but it's doing so from an angle that's more top-down. Like so. As opposed to like so. In which case, every time we hit a point where there's a junction between those two toroids, we can use that as a position to switch into 2D. Or vice versa, we can use this 2D flower and come to a point where we can switch it into a toroid that we know and love. And we can switch it right back if we so desire. A couple great examples of this here from this place where I'm essentially doing opposite at the same time with my toroid. I can break out of it into anti-spin like so and drop straight back into it. Easy peasy. If I want to go for one of those junction points, this is a move I'm kind of enjoying right now, is taking a same time, same direction hybrid and on the side, switching it into a toroid pentagram, with the point moving same time, same direction. From the side angle, it looks like this. So what this adds up to is a whole bunch more options for playing around with our 3D audiences, where, you know, we're used to the idea of plane breaking, but we don't necessarily have to do it to get a complete 3D picture. We can instead play around with our planes in a vastly different fashion. And of course, that toroid overlap phenomenon works between toroid flowers as well. I can switch between the pentagram and this toroid, which one is an isolated toroid and one is an anti-spin toroid. Cool, huh? So, there's doubtlessly more coming down this thread, but I thought I would at least share some preliminary stuff. Thank you guys for watching. Have yourselves a great week. Peace.